For decades, the world has run on a single powerful engine, the United States dollar. This is not by accident but by design, a system cemented after World War II that positioned America's currency at the very heart of global commerce. The long-standing economic partnership between the United States and India has entered a period of unprecedented strain, largely driven by President Trump's America First trade philosophy. Trump has threatened to impose staggering tariffs, potentially as high as 50%, on a wide range of Indian goods, citing India's growing trade relationship with Russia and its deepening involvement with the BRICS alliance. This aggressive tariff strategy represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the modern global economy and the nature of America's alliance with India. The United States' economic health is more deeply intertwined with India than many Americans realize, especially in the critical sector of healthcare. India is rightly known as the pharmacy of the world, producing over 20% of the global supply of generic drugs. A 50% tariff on Indian pharmaceutical goods would not be a mere economic inconvenience, it would be a full-blown public health crisis. Prices for essential medicines would skyrocket almost overnight. The notion that the United States could simply replace this supply chain domestically is a dangerous fantasy. Building the sophisticated pharmaceutical plants required would take years and billions of dollars. The United States is the single largest market for polished diamonds, importing a staggering $24 billion worth of these precious stones each year, with a substantial portion originating from or processed in India. If the United States imposes crippling tariffs on Indian diamonds, India has viable and eager alternatives. The burgeoning markets of China and Hong Kong would be more than happy to absorb the supply that would otherwise go to America. India's economic importance to the United States also extends deep into the technology and service sectors. A blanket 50% tariff would make all of these goods and services significantly more expensive. BRICS stands for a grouping of 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, these countries represent over 40% of the world's population, and a significant and growing share of global GDP. The BRICS nations have been methodically building the institutional framework to make this happen. They set up the New Development Bank, an alternative to the Western-controlled IMF and World Bank, and are developing a BRICS payment system as a rival to the SWIFT network. Historically, India has been the most cautious BRICS member on de-dollarization, but President Trump's aggressive tariff policies are pushing India away from its traditional position, giving it reasons to commit to a post-dollar BRICS vision. Every step India takes away from the dollar is a monumental strategic victory for China. For years, Beijing has been patiently working to internationalize its currency, the Yuan, and establish it as a credible alternative to the US dollar. India's adoption of the Yuan for trade would provide a massive boost of legitimacy, showing that the Yuan is a viable currency for major international transactions, not just for China's smaller trading partners, but for a global economic powerhouse. The United States' network of partnerships is built not just on shared values, but also on shared economic interests, with the dollar serving as the underlying connective tissue. As that foundation weakens, so do the alliances. Brazil, another key member of BRICS, would be watching this closely. President Trump has already targeted Brazil in the past, and facing similar tariff threats, Brazil would have a strong incentive to speed up its own de-dollarization plans. Other middle powers and emerging economies would see India's move as a blueprint for economic sovereignty. This creates a new, self-contained economic loop that completely bypasses the US dollar. Even developed economies would be forced to adapt. This creates a feedback loop where each country that diversifies away from the dollar makes it safer and more attractive for the next country to do the same. The potential decision by India to shift its trade from the US dollar to the Chinese yuan represents a defining moment in the 21st century. We're witnessing the possible unraveling of an economic order that's defined the world for over 75 years. We're at the beginning of a transition to a more fragmented, multipolar currency world. The dollar will probably remain a major currency, but it won't be the only one. It'll have to compete with the yuan, and maybe even the euro. For the rest of the world, opportunity and instability. Nations will have more choices, but multiple competing currency blocks can mean more volatility and economic friction. India stands at the crossroads of this historic shift. Its decision will reverberate globally, reshaping strategic calculations. President Trump frames his policies as restoring greatness, but he may be presiding over the end of an American-led economic era, ushering in a new, uncertain world order whose rules have yet to be written.